Hello and welcome to the Verge Live from Google I/O 2013. I'm Josh Topolsky.
And I'm Chris Ziegler.
Yeah. Hey,
I didn't know if you were going to throw it
I
to
don't
me
know.
or-
I didn't know either. It just happened. We're live here actually at the Verge Vox Studios, and we've got a lot of news to discuss today. Big day of Google news. Too much.
Literally
news.
hours
and
hours.
hours, like 3.5 straight hours of nonstop Google news. Some would say too much news. No one would disagree with them. Others would not disagree. But we have a lot to talk about, a lot of news to get to. We have a bunch of people on the ground at I/O right now. We'll be speaking to them later in the show. But Chris and I are going to run down what happened today, the biggest announcements, talk through some of these announcements, discuss whether or not we think they were totally bunk or super awesome. And by the way, that's the only space that they can exist in. Either
Very binary.
Bunk or awesome.
Very binary.
So what happened today? What was the news?
I think maybe you'll disagree with me, but I don't
will.
think so.
This table is going to fall over.
It really is.
I should lean on it.
Literally the most important announcement of this event was the Galaxy S4 Google Edition.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about the most important.
Kind of the most important. So this
It was somewhat important.
So this is a Galaxy S4 that is bootloader unlocked,
Yeah.
running stock Android, no carrier control, runs on AT&T and T-Mobile with LTE, 649, 16 gig with microSD slot.
Not cheap.
Not cheap,
Not
but
a cheap product.
not cheap, but think about think about the alternatives, right? The HTC One Developer Edition is the same price.
Yeah.
iPhone 5
Yeah.
is the same price.
I just wish it was the HTC One.
Right.
That's my number one. But I will say I'm buying one of these. There's no question.
Yeah.
Like I'm all set.
Yeah.
It's LTE unlocked, AT&T, 1080p screen, good camera.
This is the dream.
This is the phone that we've all wanted. We've been asking for.
Right, this is the dream.
Yeah.
Up until this point, literally every time Google's announced a phone itself, a Nexus device, there's been some ridiculous, horrible, soul-crushing compromise,
Yeah.
and this is the first time that.
Well, the only compromise is that it's got kind of like bad hardware.
Well, yeah, but yes, but I mean, it's like a half step
What's the
behind
battery?
the one.
What's the battery on the
2600 milliamp hour.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's encouraging.
Well, no, it's not because it's got a.
Not encouraging.
Because that is a 1080p display.
Well, yeah, but comparatively to the 2300 in the one, it's a bigger battery and it's a Super AMOLED.
That's true. That's true. It's
So
a good display.
F you to hell.
Yes.
But so what else is in? That's not the only. I mean, that's a big deal. And we should get into that more. But I want to run down the news items. What are the other big stories from today?
So we have the Google Play Music All Access,
Yeah.
which is the rumored. We broke this story.
Yeah. We actually broke it last night. Greg Sandoval had a big piece that went up hours before anybody else had the story.
Literally hours.
I'm just psyched. I mean, he had a really great story.
Yeah.
And he basically said that this was subscription service was coming today, that all three of the major labels had signed on. And as we discovered today at the announcement, that's true. I've actually just signed up for the trial.
Because you get it at a discount. It's $7.99.
Because I'm a Google employee.
Through Google.
No, I got it. Yeah, is it an I/O thing?
No, it's until if you sign up.
I was just for people who sign up the first.
Until June 30th,
Yeah.
if you sign up,
Yeah.
then you get it for $7.99 instead of the normal $9.99, which is
Well, so now
obviously
I'm now paying for RDO, Spotify, Google All Access, Netflix, Hulu Plus.
You are a
I'm
cog of the music industry.
But like across subscription services, I'm spending easily another $70 a month on top of my cable bill, which I think is what they want. I think that's the goal.
Well, the question is, would you spend more than $70 a month on new albums?
No.
No, you wouldn't.
No way.
Okay.
$70 a month on albums?
So you're a cog in the music industry.
No. They're taking me for everything that I have. I'm getting my computer out because I don't want to miss any important news.
So after that, we had. We're not going necessarily in chronological order of the keynote, but
That's big.
That's big.
The S4 is big. The All Access is pretty huge.
Google Plus Hangouts. They're kind of redefining.
Yeah, so we did, and we had if you guys go on the site right now, we have an exclusive look. And that word exclusive, I know it can be overused. We actually try to avoid that word unless absolutely necessary.
Worthwhile.
But we do have an exclusive in-depth look. We went out to Google. I didn't, but people did. Went out to Google and got kind of the backstory on Hangouts, why it exists, some design stuff. All their new emoji. several hundred new emoji.
Yeah, is it 800? I think something like that.
700 or 800, yeah. And so we did, and so that there was that, which is a big deal, which is kind of integrated messaging, except for the fact that it doesn't integrate SMS and it doesn't integrate Google Voice.
Right.
So to me, those are like two massive failures on their part.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're going to integrate your messaging, integrate all of your messaging.
Because SMS is the least common denominator, right? That's the one thing that can reach everybody. And they're not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, why not say like, hey, you know, you're using a Samsung, here's a replacement, you know, for your SMS app or whatever.
Right.
You know, not happening. So there's that.
They spent a long time talking about the photo features
Plus
in the Google Plus redesign.
They did a bunch of Google Plus stuff. They did a redesign, which several people have tweeted at me, and I haven't had a chance to play with it, but several people have tweeted me that they think it looks like the Verge, which I take as a compliment.
To me, it looks like a more complicated version of Google now. It's the same style where you have the cards everywhere.
I thought it was very cool. So they have this thing with hashtags, right? Where you can use, if you use a hashtag, you can flip the card over and look at other content that's in that hashtag, which I think is a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Like I have to say, I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, totally.
But so Google Plus, they're like trying, it's like, okay, look, seriously, like we're trying to do Google Plus. We really are serious about it. We're not abandoning it.
Right.
Here's a new push.
This is not a spring cleaning product.
Do you think this is going to be, does this encourage you to use it more?
Well, I think they're getting to the point. In fact, another thing that we'll talk about later on is this educational push.
Yeah.
And they're going to get to the point where, when you're born, you're going to have a Google account.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to get absorbed into that.
It was written about in Revelation, Book of Revelation. The devil he'll sign you up for Google Plus.
Now, who's the devil in this case?
Larry Page.
I was worried you'd go there.
No, so they have, the interesting thing about Google Plus is that I use it basically for photo backup. Like when I take pictures on my phone, they upload immediately to Google Plus.
Yeah.
And privately.
Which used to be Picasa.
Yeah, which is, I guess, have they phased out Picasa? It
Yeah.
seems like they haven't actually phased out Picasa.
Well, if you go to picasaweb.google.com, it redirects to Google Plus now.
Right. So I actually find that hugely convenient. I think the places where they're going to make Google Plus useful is in the places where they like trick you into using it, basically.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I don't know why my level keeps going up and down in my ear, but please do not deafen us. Whoever's controlling in the control room.
We still have 1 year left. It's all good.
1 year? You think that's all I have left?
That's all you need.
How dare you?
That's all you need.
All right, what else?
The big Maps Overhaul.
Big Maps.
Which has a lot of Earth integration. They're adding some really cool big maps.
Do you want fries with that? Sorry, I don't know. Big Mac.
You lost me.
You know what? It's been a long day. I'm very tired. That was definitely one of my shittiest jokes of all time. I'm not going to lie to you.
I feel really bad for the people in that keynote, by the way. I mean, can you imagine?
The people physically there.
Yeah.
I mean, our team is in a lot of physical distress right now.
Yeah.
They haven't gone to the bathroom in hours.
No.
They have not eaten.
They've soiled themselves.
They're looking around. It's kind of like the Katrina, the Superdome.
Oh,
sort of. At this point, the Google I/O session that took place, the keynote, is super.
They're kind of like banding together and helping themselves survive.
There's like roving packs of wild dogs and gangs happening. No, it was very long.
Yes,
right,
it was extremely long. So we had Maps, and then finally, and this actually goes back to the very beginning of the keynote, where Hugo Barra talked about this sort of cohesive gaming experience, which is something that Android has been lacking forever.
Yeah.
And I was talking with Sean Hollister about this a little earlier, and I think that he is not buying into my conspiracy theory, but I do find it very interesting that literally, it was yesterday, right, that Project Shield got a release date and a price.
Yeah.
And today we get this story about this cohesive gaming experience. I mean, I'm just saying.
You really think that's linked?
I think that it's not necessarily linked from Google to NVIDIA, but I think that NVIDIA may have been informed. Clearly they have some level purview into the Android roadmap. They need to. They're NVIDIA.
Right.
So maybe they said, okay, this is the iron's hot. Now is when we're going to strike.
Do you think that Google has any designs on getting into living room gaming through this?
Ouya certainly does.
Well, Ouya does, but that's not part of the same ecosystem.
Right. Well, so Google TV, TV was conspicuously absent from this keynote.
Yeah. No,
and if they're going to do it,
and you know what I didn't see? No updates on the queue.
Yeah.
The Nexus Q.
That's right.
What's happening with that?
And that would be a perfect product for All Access, right?
Yes. Be a great product for All Access, but that didn't happen. So big Maps Overhaul, gaming. I'm looking through our list here. Is that everything? That cannot be everything.
No,
There's a lot of developer stuff.
Yeah, there's like at least a solid hour.
Which is not. We're not going to spend time talking about it because if you're a developer, you're in a session right now. Like you don't need to hear us talking.
Well,
about
so
it.
I'd like to share a little anecdote about this keynote.
Please do.
You know, I was listening to the entire thing, and normally when we're live blogging an event like this, when you're in our shoes, you're sort of keyed into when people start screaming and shouting and getting really excited. You're like, oh, something really important just happened. I need to find out what it was.
Yeah.
You can't trust those instincts at an event like this because the things that people were screaming and shouting at were like a picture of code on the screen.
You get the stream running, you hear that, you hear the fanfare,
and
you're like, uh-oh. Because I was doing the same thing. I'm like, what's going on? You know, we're typing, we're in our chat room and stuff. And then it's like, oh, it's a new video.
It's some developer console
new video
thing.
player standard, or
right?
Something. Which is cool. By the way, actually, they showed off. What is the name of the new image format? What is it called?
Oh, WebP.
Is it WebP?
Yeah.
WebP, which they basically are like replaces JPEGs, PNGs, and GIFs,
right?
And has animated GIF functionality. What do you call them though?
WebPs.
No, I know they're WebPs, but like a GIF is a GIF. You say like, oh, look at this GIF.
You mean a GIF?
You say, look at this, or GIF. You say, look at this P.
Look at this P. That's
check out this P I just made. That's pretty lowbrow.
That joke's coming full circle because I feel like we used that a lot when Sony announced the VAIO P. And now we have another opportunity, another cycle for the P joke.
The P joke?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's like there's not a convenient word or phrasing for that animated.
Right.
I don't know. It's gonna be tough to take on GIFs. I think it would help if they're smaller. If they're smaller in size, that's a big deal. And then they also showed off the new video. Sorry, I really am tired.
Codec?
The new video codec. Thank you. Which is what is it called?
This one I don't have.
God, we're terribly informed.
But I will say
again,
this.
I want to remind you, it was a 3.5 hour.
3.5. Yeah, this
3.5 hour. I mean, that's so
it
far
happened
away.
Yesterday, basically.
I mean, it feels like something that happened at in a different, not just a different day, but a different era of humanity.
Right.
Like in medieval. It was like a medieval time
like
event.
in the Metacrawler days is when this happened.
Yeah. And yeah, they introduced this new video platform.
Right.
Which for some
and by the way,
desperately can't think of the name.
To be clear though, these codecs aren't new. They were. Every once in a while, we see Google really push these new generation codecs because they're obviously great in many ways. They're more efficient. You can do more with them. But none of the codecs that they showed today are actually new. They've been around for a while. I think that WebP was introduced last year.
Right.
If not earlier.
No, that's right. But they did show it off.
Yeah.
Somebody was I'm just reading Twitter and somebody's like, give me more booze or take it away. Honestly, if somebody wanted to bring me a drink, I wouldn't stop you at this point. But so let's talk about let's get specific on some of these. And by the way, at some point in the near future, we're going to have David Pierce, I believe, joining us from
Nilay, I think first.
Oh, Nilay first.
Yep.
Nilay is going to join us live from I/O, where they're on the ground with our video team, mad scrambling to finally use a bathroom and eat food.
And by the way, literally half of the company is on the ground in San Francisco right now, which is the only reason that I'm sitting next to you. I should clarify. Right. You're wondering why I'm at this desk. It's because the first 18 choices were in San Francisco.
There were several options that we entertained, several great people.
Yeah.
And we ended up with you. But no, I'm glad because you are probably more mentally with it than I am. I'm having acute back pain right now, and I've been taking tons of ibuprofen all day.
Just lean back. Or if you need me to sort of give you one of these.
I think leaning back is actually the problem. So I am a little distracted by every time I shift my weight, I have like an incredible searing back pain. But don't let that worry you as we're going through the topics of today's Google news announcements. So let's start with let's actually deep dive on a couple of these things. Let's start with the Galaxy S4.
Yeah.
So, we are all very bullish on the One as a phone. Mm-hmm. It seems, and there's been a lot of talk about Google sort of losing its its voice, its Android voice, in no pun intended with Larry's voice loss, but it's kind of lost its voice in terms of like what Samsung talks about.
Right.
There really doesn't feel like there's a Google presence when you see a Samsung announcement, and a lot of these announcements where it's an Android-powered device, you just don't hear Android very much.
Right.
So it seems like in some way, they're saying, look, we're buddies with these guys.
We're having audio problems. We're being told to stand by.
We're having audio problems with us or audio problems with Nilay?
Oh, with Nilay.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I'm sorry.
These guys can unfortunately hear us fine. But I thought it was interesting that they're kind of saying, I felt like they're kind of saying, like, look, Samsung isn't, we're not at odds with Samsung. We're buddies with Samsung. Look, we're doing a phone together. But I also think it's really strange. Why not say we're going to do the Galaxy S4, we're going to do the One, and we're going to do, pick another flagship phone, like a Motorola flagship or something. I mean, does Motorola even have a flagship at this moment?
They will soon with that.
They will.
Presumably.
They will soon. But I thought it was a little strange that they didn't go broader.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just too much effort for them. The nice thing is, though, I am somewhat excited about the S4. I mean, this completely changes. Like the S4 is like not even a consideration because I hate TouchWiz so much.
Yeah.
And it definitely is now. This to me seems like the phone that I want.
Well, literally,
because it's like almost no compromise.
Yeah, well, the only thing that you have to overlook is the hardware. Yeah. But everything else is kind of like.
Are they only doing them in white?
That I don't know.
I really don't want a white phone. Like that's the other thing. It's like,
you're over white?
White is played. Everybody knows that.
Because at one time, white was.
Yeah, when white was cool. But now white's been, everybody does white and it's boring.
Right.
You know what's cool? Green.
I was going to say fuchsia. Like a fuchsia GS4 would play very well.
I'd love a green GS4.
Like a bright green or like
emerald
a forest?
Green.
Emerald green, okay.
Yeah, sort of a bright green.
Sure.
Royal green.
Yeah.
It's not a color, but... So I've just been told via Ghost that Nilay is ready.
Nilay Patel.
To join us live. Can we get Nilay up on the view screen?
I'm joining you as a giant truck walks by.
Yes.
There he is.
Nilay. First off, can you hear me?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good. How are you feeling?
I want to tell you something.
Yes.
I don't want to talk about news. I don't want to talk about product announcements. I don't want to talk about Google Now or Search or Maps. All I want to talk about is the last experience I just had in a room with 6,000 people where Larry Page was just quietly talking about the future and like the place he wants to go to where there are no laws and he can just experiment on running the world. Because that was insane, and I think it changed me emotionally.
He did say, he made a comment I actually tweeted, which was something like, there are places like Burning Man where you can experiment, you can try new things.
You can kill people.
No, I mean, he kind of made it sound like you would...
Yeah.
You would believe what we get away with at Burning Man.
It sounded like the island of Dr. Moreau. He wants to build human-animal hybrids and just see if people are okay with that.
Yeah.
If you're not okay with that, you don't have to go there,
just wants
right?
a place.
You can just stay in your own
people,
regulated country.
Right.
With this space, we're just going to try it out.
Certain people will want to go there, and if you don't want to go there, it's no big deal. But don't, for God's sake, ask about what's going on there because it's bad. It's nasty.
Yeah.
What was the mood in the room?
So let me just set the stage here a little bit on what we're talking about, and because I was trying to convey it in the live vlog, and it maybe came through if you're watching the stream, but the experience of being in the Moscone Center when Larry Page walked out, there's a huge everyone started cheering and whooping. It was a big surprise. Nobody knew he was coming. He doesn't make a lot of public appearances. He just did a story yesterday. He released some information that his vocal cords are paralyzed, and nobody was expecting him. People started rushing up to the front to take pictures, and then he started talking, just about Google. It was really unstructured. It was obviously ad-libbed and riffed. He was like, I hate the negativity. I want everybody to be positive. Let's build awesome things. And now I'm going to do Q&A. And for this entire time, the room was totally, totally silent. I've never been in a press conference keynote situation where it was so silent and everyone was just accepting what was being said without any reaction whatsoever.
Yeah.
So when he got to the line, maybe we need a place where we can just experiment and see how things go. There was no reaction. Everyone was like, maybe that's a good idea. To me, that was the most insane thing I've ever been around.
What is your impression of, what do you think he actually meant by that? Is he talking about seasteading? Or, what was he talking about?
I don't know. I mean, David looked at me. He's like, I think Larry Page wants us all to go to Burning Man with him. I mean, it was very much like, he was talking about Google Health, and he was like, the problems there were regulatory for us. We wanted to do something with healthcare, and we couldn't because there's all these regulations in place, and we didn't have enough leverage with technology to get those things changed. And then he went into this riff about why do we keep our medical information private? It's probably because insurance companies want us to keep it private. And I don't think that's true. I mean, I don't think people are yearning to share their medical situation with everyone else. Insurance companies have created some false norm of keeping that a secret. I think people just don't want to talk about their medical problems. It's just there's a disconnect between everything he was saying about the world and how it works and how he would like it to work. There's great stuff. I think the stuff you're saying about it not being a zero-sum game, about wanting more interoperability, I think the stuff you're saying, the really nuts and bolts technology stuff, how he's sad that the development of the web has slowed because we're not focused so much on interoperability and platforms, all of that was really interesting. It was just one layer deeper where it was like, are we listening to a crazy person or a genius?
Right.
And I honestly could not tell for most of it.
There is always this thing where the Google guys say something that feels really invasive and scary. Like he didn't talking about medical records. Like this just doesn't seem like the right forum where you want to hear Larry talk about how he thinks it's weird that
that's usually a Schmidt game, right?
But these guys just have a tendency, right, to say things that make people uncomfortable, which I get to some extent. It's just, do you think they would learn after a few go rounds? They'd be like, we might do some things in medical records, but I'm not gonna go up on stage and offhandedly talk about how we'd like to do things to your medical records. It just seems like a weird play to me. Right. So Nilay, let's switch gears from Larry for a second. What was the biggest announcement today? What was the thing that you felt was most exciting or interesting, either from your perspective or from the room's perspective? I'm curious to know, what was the thing that got the biggest sort of oohs and ahs?
There were two parts, right? The first part was all really developer heavy, and there were a lot of big cheers for developer stuff from the huge developer community that was in the room, right? So the cloud saving stuff, syncing notifications got this massive cheer. It's really simple stuff that's going to improve the experience of using this stuff. Then when they got to the consumer announcements, they showed off Hangouts working across devices. They showed off the auto filters on photos. That got a big cheer. What I thought that stuff I think is really obvious. So the big features, we have big stories about some of that stuff on the site right now. To me, the two things that I thought were really interesting and were very subtle but very direct jabs at Apple. I thought they spent a lot of time talking about Maps and how dominant they are in Maps and how they're using all the data they've collected and created to create even more data and make the maps better and build a new user interface, and 1 million sites are using Google Maps. I thought that was a really direct shot at Apple and what Apple is doing in the Maps space. And then that transitioned right into search, right? And the search stuff was they are basically building Siri in the cloud that works for all of your devices. And all the stuff they showed with hot wording, with contextual search, with voice recognition, all that stuff is, in comparison, I think Siri looks very, very dated and kind of useless. And the Google stuff, where you just have a Google tab open and you're just talking to the computer, I think that stuff is incredibly powerful. And I think that will be the legacy of this I/O, as opposed to just API changes for Android.
But isn't that, call me crazy, but the idea of people constantly talking to their browser for search, it does seem a little bit not natural, right? Am I crazy? Unnatural, rather? Did it strike you as something that would be unnatural?
I think it's that either that behavior will take on or it won't, right? That's how you enter the keywords. I think is, it's up for debate. I think a lot of people might like talking. I like talking to my phone. I think that's useful when I'm in the car and stuff.
Right.
What I think is more interesting is that they're starting to rope in your personal data, so you can say what time is my restaurant reservation, and Google as a service will know across devices, as opposed to Siri right now, which is very much on your device, very local, and very not backed by a big cloud service. And I think Google's really flexing its muscle in, okay, we put a computer in your hand, we put it in your pocket, you've got tablets. Now we're going to start interconnecting that with our cloud in much more significant ways. I think the photo stuff is another really good example. in my life, it doesn't occur to me to take 600 photos on vacation and send them all to Google and let some computer select the best shots, do whatever processing it wants, and then present me an album of finished photos. But I think a lot of people are really interested in stuff like that. And I can't think of another company that can do it at the scale that Google's doing it. And I think that's where they're pushing their platforms forward.
Right. So Nilay, let me ask you a few things conspicuously missing today, right? No Android 4.3 or 5.0 or whatever it's going to be called. No new hardware and no real glass talk to speak of. What surprised you the most?
I think the lack of, I mean, Android 4.3, we've been at with the 6th I/O, right? And now it's a new version of Android, and then nobody can get it for another year. So that to me is great. So they didn't announce it. I think that's a wash. I think they've got to get everybody on 4.2 anyway. I think that the one big Android hardware announcement that was really interesting to me is the GS4 with stock Android.
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from. I saw the leaks a couple days ago, and I thought they were fake, like legitimately thought they were fake. I'm very curious as to what that device means for the Nexus program, what it means for Android, other Android hardware vendors. There's a truck going by, excuse me. Whether or not anybody's even going to buy it. Like, I'm definitely going to buy that GS4 stock Android. I imagine you guys are too.
Oh yeah.
The question is, like, is it going to make an impact on the world? And then the glass stuff, it really just got started. I don't think there's much for them to say about it. You know, we shipped 1,000 units of glass. Most of the nerds we shipped them to are in this room, looking uncomfortably at each other. I saw there was a really funny moment right before it started. Who did Joanna run into who was also wearing glass? It was somebody. Joanna Stern is wearing her white glass headset. She ran into somebody else. I think it was Matt Honan from Wired. And they looked at each other, and both of them said, something should happen now. And, like, you know, nothing happened. They were both still wearing these headsets.
The glass.
And so I don't know that there's much for Google to say.
The glass should become aware of the presence of another glass and react. Is that what they were suggesting?
Yeah, I mean, like, they were literally like, this feels weird. Something should be happening with this technology that we're wearing on our face that's looking out at the world and seeing somebody else wearing the same. You know, we're unique people because we have this thing. And I think that's where glass is in a state right now. People have them. Nobody knows what to do with them. Larry Page even said, you know, we just want to make happy customers and you can figure it out, which I think is a pretty bizarre thing for a company to try to do, especially with a product like glass. But if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Google. So I would say for me, the most surprising omissions here were any explanations of what's going on with that GS4. And then the lack of a new Nexus 7 with a higher resolution display, I thought was almost kind of a lock, and it just didn't show up.
Yeah, that is an unusual omission. That's a good point. I didn't even think about that while the keynote was going on. And after 3.5 hours, I just kind of wanted it to be over. I didn't want any more announcements, and I'm sure that you felt the same way. I hope you've had an opportunity to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, no, it was really painful for you, right, Chris? Guess who was typing for 3.5 hours?
You know what? Something I just looked at the Nilay. You tweeted our story on Larry Page talking about the setting apart a part of the world for without regulation for human rotation, and somebody posted an image of Rapture from BioShock, which is exactly what he's describing. It's literally like they wouldn't let us do what we wanted to do on the surface, so we built an underground, an underwater city where we could experiment and create. What do they call things called in Rapture in BioShock?
We need Ross to tell us.
Yeah, Ross needs to go into our ear. What is the name of the powers that you can get? Anybody, Ross, Miller, I know you're there. Anyhow, the point is, that's kind of what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And it does sound completely nuts.
Right.
Plasmids. They're called plasmids.
Yeah.
And
I mean, how do you make that work?
Yeah.
Like, how do you create a country and, like, have people live there and be like, let's try out this system of regulations for medical care. Oh, it's 3 months later, it didn't work. Let's try another set of regulations for medical care. Like, in what way do you, like, make that all work at once? I mean, it's just, I think it says, if the CEO of a company sets the culture at the top, I think what we learned about Google today is they literally don't think the ideas and notions of the rest of the world, like, really apply to them. And they're trying to create some other alternate world where they've made everything better. And I think that's great. I think there should be more companies like that.
You're ready to
but
go.
I think it's also, in many ways, terrifying.
Google's like, listen, what we want to do, is it daring? Yes. Is it experimental? Yes. Is it illegal? Definitely. Does it violate the laws of humanity and all that is good and right in the world? Without question. Should we do it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We just need a place to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Well, there's a
I'm willing to do a
very
year or two of that.
odd caretaker notion to all of their announcements, right? All of their announcements are about other people putting data into Google so they can make some sense of it for you, right? So you are going to upload all 700 of your vacation photos and allow, like, the photo enhancement service. You can turn it on or off, but you're not allowed to make any tweaks to what it actually does. Either you trust Google or you don't. The restaurant reviews, like, it's a great idea that, you know, the Maps UI will change based on what your friends like, but all of your friends have to be using Google Plus, and they have to be feeding it information about restaurants they like. And I think there's this notion inside of Google that if they could just get more of your stuff, they could get more information, they would run the world as perfectly as possible. There would be no problems and no crime, and everyone would be happy. And I think it's lovable, it's like adorable, but it's also like scary. It's a weird vision of the world where you want to put all the information you can get into your server so you can do the work for other people.
If Google could just have access to all of your data, they could find a way to reprogram your body and mind to only do good. And I don't think that's too much to ask,
No.
you know? They're searching for the good. They're searching for the good in the world. And if they have to hook you up to some sort of bizarre contraption,
Glass.
No, if they have to hook you up to a contraption that's more bizarre than glass, you know, like glass for all of your body.
Yeah.
Then so be it. I think we let them give them a couple of years and see what happens. Will we have a race of mutants? Race of Google enhanced mutants?
Yeah, well, they had another feature that was amazing, right? It was in Google Plus, the new news stream, like auto hashtag stuff for you, which is crazy. Like, I don't want everything I said to be categorized, but the way they can do it, right? They showed the demo was you put up a picture of the Eiffel Tower, you don't tell Google anything that it's the Eiffel Tower, and their like image algorithm can recognize the structure and begin sorting and categorizing it for you. And the way they said it and the way they talked about the other photo features, like in any other context, I think would be scary. Like our, machine brain recognized your photos and immediately categorized this part of your life, and then showed you some other stuff that you might be interested about it. When we can look at a photo and identify all of the skin in it, and then soften that skin to make it look better.
Whoa.
Is that a normal thing for anyone to say in front of a room of developers and customers? I don't know.
I found the repeated use of the phrase skin softening to be slightly unsettling. I mean, when you think about like Larry Page's Island, and they're like doing, he's like, we found an even better way to do skin softening, physical skin softening using an acid bath. I don't know. I mean, who knows what they're going to come up with? But, I do think like I'm into the idea that these guys are like a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
I just wish that like,
who else would have done self-driving cars this early?
Right. I just wish I wish they had a way to better manage the publicity side of their craziness. Like somebody there should be like, all right, Larry, when you go up, don't say you want to have a place where there are no laws and you want to get people's medical records. Like, say one or the other, but not both at the same time, because it seems like kind of a bad thing. Anyhow, I was actually happy to see, there's been this controversy about his voice. There was an article in Bloomberg that we wrote about Larry losing his voice and then getting it back, and clearly he's gotten it back, and it's not, maybe will never be what it was.
It's better than it's been on earnings calls lately.
Oh, yeah. I mean, on earnings calls, he could barely talk. It's interesting to see after watching, what happened with Steve Jobs. And, one of the things that was really interesting about Jobs is that we watched him go from a healthy guy on stage. We look at every one of these events, and we watch him go from a healthy guy on stage to like, is there something wrong with him? To yes, there's definitely something wrong with him, and this whole drama of his situation. Did you feel like, there was a mood of relief to see him come out and seem healthy? And, he's soft-spoken, but to me, I was kind of like, okay, he doesn't seem sick or anything, and it was sort of a relief having gone through or watched the whole Jobs thing play out. Was there a sense of that in the room at all? Did you and David talk about it?
Yeah, no, when he came out, I mean, there was just absolute euphoria. I mean, like, I'm saying, like, people were getting out of their chairs and running down the central hallways to take a photo of him and, like, be closer to him. I mean, I think there's a real sense that, like, there isn't a Steve Jobs figure in the industry, and Page could be that person. And he runs Google, which is arguably, pushing a lot of things farther than Apple ever did or could at this moment. I think that was really very, in the tone in the room, the absolute pin drop, reverent silence as he spoke, I think reflected that as well. But then it's, I can't separate that from like the content of what he was saying. And I think there are very few people who can talk about an island, we keep calling it an island, talk about a space where the laws don't apply, where you can try new things and get away with it in a room full of relatively like skeptical like engineers and journalists. And he pulled it off. So I think his command of the room and the environment was like total. He looked very confident and very healthy. He just spoke very quietly. And, the tone of his voice definitely lent him an air of like mystical quality. Yeah. And I think we're just going to have to get used to his voice. Other than that, he seemed totally fine.
Somebody tweeted, I forget who it was, that he had kind of a Michael Cera vibe going on. And I have to say, he does kind of look like an older Michael Cera, and now he sort of sounds like him as well.
He has a cameo in the new season of Resident Evil.
Does he? Yeah. He's Michael Cera in the future. So Nilay, I know that I think that we need to let you go because you've got stuff to do, but we're going to speak to either Dieter or David or both of them at some point.
We actually, at
wait
this
a
point,
second.
we're not sure.
It's going to be David.
We're not sure if we're going to be speaking to someone else later.
We're not sure.
David, it's David's right here.
Okay.
Oh, we're not sure. Now David's giving me the thumbs down. Look, you guys do whatever you want.
Anyhow, we're going to let
I'm
you
going
go.
to go live log another 3.5 hours with the same people.
We know you've got a lot of stuff to do. Thanks for joining us. Great job today, by the way. Like, you guys killed it. I thought you were way ahead of the stream. I was watching both, and I was like seeing news pop in the live blog a lot faster than their live stream.
You've earned a bathroom break, my friend.
You can now relieve yourself, in your pants or not. Your lady's choice. But thanks for joining us.
What do you think I've been doing this whole time? Right? They cropped this from up here.
Really? I mean, really? Anyhow, Nilay, thanks, and we'll
Goodbye, gentlemen.
We'll see you when you're back in New York. Okay, that was fun.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was fun. That was productive.
I feel like we mostly just kind of made up cool ideas about what Larry Page's fantasy experimentation world will be.
I think you missed it. You may have been looking down at your computer at the time, but there was this moment where Nilay was talking and this giant red android slowly walked behind him.
Really?
Yeah, it was a really special moment.
Do we have a shot of that? Do we have a still frame of that?
Yeah, let's see if we can
do any Zapruder footage of the giant android walking past.
It was a really special moment.
So, all right. So we should talk through a few more. I feel so burnt out from today's news. I mean, I have to say, in previous IOs, last year and the year before, and I think the year before that,
last year's was bonkers. Remember with the skydivers?
Yeah, but they did two different keynotes.
Right. It was a 2-day ordeal.
They did an Android-focused keynote, and then they did like a Chrome, Google ecosystem sort of focused keynote. And that was like, one was for what's going on in the Android hardware. I think the Q, was last year. They kind of showed off that stuff. And then the other was, here's what we're doing in Chrome, here's what we're doing in search, here's what we're doing. I think there was more of a developer slant to that stuff.
Yeah.
They should have kept them as 2. I mean, 3.5 hours is too much to ask of people, I think. And also, when you look at the stack of news that you deal with in one day, there are stories that they were talking about early on, like some of these new standards, some of the developer stuff, that it's just like, well, that's lost in the shuffle.
Right.
People aren't going to see that news. They're only going to see like a couple of the biggest stories of the day. I think they should have split it. I don't know why they didn't. What was for you, though? I'm curious. I mean, was the S4 the most surprising part of the news?
I think so, yeah. I think that collectively, we've all just been holding our breath so long for this kind of phone, a phone that is very close to being a no-compromise device.
And what does it mean that they're selling it for $650?
What it means
is not geared towards an average consumer.
No,
not the way the Nexus is. The Nexus is definitely priced for a regular consumer who might want to buy an unlocked device.
Right.
This is not in the vicinity.
Yeah, the Nexus 4 is a device where Google, I think, made a very conscientious decision to push a certain type of message, and that they were willing to subsidize that message, and they did it, for better or worse. Whereas the GS4, the Google GS4, I think, is more of a reactionary thing, where they said, okay, well, there are clearly enough people who are interested in this kind of device. It's a very, very low cost for us to work with Samsung to develop. I mean, Samsung will work with anybody for any reason at any time.
We're working on a Verge Samsung device right now.
So it was very, very low effort for them to do that, and they don't have to subsidize it. $650 is effectively full price.
Right. I think that the music announcement was really interesting today.
Yes.
I mean, what I wonder is, to me, this is kind of the best of both worlds. Where you've got. Rdio and Spotify are both kind of islands in the sense that if you want to buy something, you have to go somewhere else to buy something. Spotify does some limited purchasing, don't they? They don't have the full catalog. I forget how it works.
In-app? I've never tried. Let's
Maybe
put it
it's
that way.
yeah, but I think that like it's interesting that you know, one of the things like for instance the new Vampire Weekend record is out, and you know, of course I want to listen to it. You know, when you live in Brooklyn, you have to listen to all of the new Vampire Weekend records, no matter.
It's obligatory.
It's just something you sign a waiver when you get into the borough. But you know, I wanted to listen to it yesterday. It was you could buy it, you couldn't stream it. To me, it's like to have to go and find it somewhere was really annoying. You know, it was like, oh, I can't stream it. Oh, it's not on Spotify. It's on Narnia. It's on Spotify. I guess I'll go buy it in iTunes. Right. This to me is like the perfect solution for that. It's like, okay, if you want it right now, you can buy it. If you want to wait, you can wait. You can stream if it's available at the same time. But is this enough for Google to make a dent? And I think it's like a big threat to RDO and Spotify, at least from a business standpoint. From just a straight up like Google is a juggernaut. They are very serious about building their content offerings. This is a YouTube. You know, these deals are spanning YouTube, which means that YouTube can now. Has some license to stream these music videos or songs. You know, if I'm Spotify or RDO, I feel like this is a threat, but do consumers care? Are consumers going to go onto their phone and say, you know, I mean, Spotify is like a household name now.
Right.
Nobody cares about Google Play.
That's exactly it. I think that Spotify and RDO have both been smart enough about proactively getting their brands out there that they may have gotten ahead of the curve, and it no longer matters that Google is the juggernaut.
Right.
I see, you know, in Chicago, I see giant RDO billboards everywhere.
Yeah, they're here too.
Yeah, and Spotify, everybody knows this.
Right.
Spotify.
I mean, they're pushing it hard, and one of the things is that it's like, you know, Google Play All Access doesn't roll off the tongue.
Right.
It's not like, oh yeah, Google Play All Access, I want to get that. You know,
right.
Why not just brand the thing as a separate? You know, it could be tied to Google Play, but why not just call it Play?
Well, they already
Google
did.
Play. I mean, that would have been a great name for the service.
They already have that.
I know. It's just like All Access is really bad.
But you know,
I feel like they have I think they have like a branding and discoverability issue with this service.
It's interesting. Reusing brands inside companies is like the new like hot trope, right? Like first with Microsoft Surface, now with Google Hangout.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not Play?
Why not you reuse it? Just call it Google Play Play. Google Play
with a little a superscript 2.
Google Play
Play squared.
Or like an umlaut over the A. How would you pronounce that? Does anybody know?
Ply.
I don't think that's
No,
right.
it's probably
not. All right,
right.
what else? What are the other important things that we haven't talked about yet?
Well, so one thing that I kind of thought about while this was going on, this 3.5-hour nightmare.
Yeah.
Nightmare is not.
It wasn't. It was not.
No,
the first 2 hours were good, solid. It had a nice flow to it.
The only thing about it that was a nightmare was the duration.
The Q&A, I thought, really killed it.
No, it was great. Yeah, seeing Larry out was great.
3.5 hours. I wish Larry had come out, said a few words, and called it a day. I don't think the Q&A served any purpose.
He had some really interesting answers.
Except that he got to talk about his fantasy island where he was going to experiment on.
But no,
animals.
it was great to see like a super healthy Larry Page out on stage. And they interspersed some really important announcements throughout the entire 3.5 hours. But if you compare this to WWDC, which will be at in just a few weeks now, same place.
In the exact same room.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is also a developer-focused event, but
Yeah.
guess what? The day one keynote is going to be very consumer-focused. I can guarantee you that much.
Yeah, it's all consumer.
And it's not going to be 3.5 hours.
I mean, they'll talk about developer stuff, but they typically downplay that.
Right.
I mean, I don't see why Google couldn't have done. We're going to do the consumer-facing stuff on day one. We're going to do developer-facing stuff on day 2, and call it a day.
Yeah.
Call it 2 days.
Yeah, they're just very different philosophies.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I actually thought that it was fairly entertaining for the most part.
Right. So we have David.
Pierce.
David Pierce.
Pierce David on Twitter is going to join us now. And let's get him punched up on the vid screen. David, are you with us? Oh, this is exciting.
Hello. I'm still sorry about my Twitter handle, by the way, Josh.
David, there's
sorry.
no excuse, okay? You made the mistake. It's your Twitter handle, and you just have to live with it. And I'm going to have to live with it as well.
Forever.
David, what was your take on today's event?
I'm glad. It was sort of weird. It was like, I feel like there was an hour, at least as a consumer, somebody who isn't an Android developer or a Chrome developer, there was like an hour of really interesting stuff in there. The Google Now stuff they showed was super interesting. The Hangout stuff is really exciting, though it's not quite what I was hoping it would be. But then they interspersed it with all this stuff. They spent a lot of time talking about like how to sell your tablet app now and how to make more money from your app. And obviously the audience is this funny mix of, you know, regular people and press who identify more as regular people and these developers who, and so it was like half the crowd is cheering for each individual thing over the course of 3.5 hours. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there I think I took 2,000 pictures, like my computer's dead and my camera's dead and my HyperMac is dead. And
can we address something that I'm very concerned about right now? Are you and I wearing the same shirt?
No.
I think we are.
Oh.
I hope so.
It's very similar.
I've been waiting for this day.
Similar. I saw that shirt. I was like, wait a second, what's going on? Is your computer actually, is your battery dead?
Yeah. Oh, everything right at the end of the event, everything just started to kind of die, and it just cascaded down, and now I have just nothing.
So, David, you bring up a really good point.
My cell phone, and that's all I have.
You bring up a really good point about the focus on tablets in the first half of the keynote, which I thought was really interesting because here we all anticipated this next-gen Nexus 7 that didn't happen. So now they're left with this renewed focus for developers on developing for tablets, and like they have a special tablet section in the Play Store and whatnot. But we don't have new hardware. Do you think that's a problem, or can the Nexus 7 last another year?
Well, I will say I was convinced at that point that they were going to come out with the Nexus 7. It was such a like easy, obvious ramp up. They were like, you know, we have ways for you to make money, and one of them is to design for tablets. And one of the best ways about designing for tablets is that we have this new section of the App Store. And then it's such an obvious thing to be like, hey, and we have this new great tablet that people will use and buy your apps on.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't there, and it wound up sort of awkward. And like, I use the Nexus 7 now, and it feels old.
Yeah.
It feels sort of slow, and it just hasn't really kept up over a year. And like, I'm shocked there wasn't a new one.
I mean, look, Apple updates its stuff every year. Mm-hmm. It's unusual. I'm just totally wildly speculating, but it feels like there's going to be a separate. They have to do a new tablet, right? I mean,
this year they have to.
You know, it just seems like there's no like strong tablet presence for Google right now. The Nexus 7 is just old. You know, I feel like they're due something new. And, you know, I don't know, maybe they didn't want to crowd this event, which is weird because can we just show, sorry, hang on, David. Can we just get a shot of our live blog page? Somebody in the control room, can you just get a shot of the live blog page at the top of the page? So we're able to pin all of the kind of breakout interesting stories from an event while we're doing a live blog. And I would just like you to see what the wall of news that is on. I don't know if our guys can bring it up or not. Just the wall of news that was from today's event. And we actually took some of the stories out of it.
Yeah, it's not all in there.
This is not all of the news. At some point, I'm sure somebody in the control room is going to get an image of the live blog up. But David, while that's happening, what to you was the biggest announcement today or biggest surprise to you when you were sitting there?
Well, so first of all, I should tell you that this, just as an indication of how insane this event actually was, we stood up at the end of the event, and Nilai's stuff is just everywhere. Like, he's just strewn all over the ground, and he was like, yeah, my wrists started swelling. I was typing so much, so I had to take off, like, he had the cuff and the watch, and just had to fling them off and just keep typing. And, like, that was what we just sat through.
Well, Nilai has a tendency to wear very chunky wrist jewelry, as we know. That's a fact, and it's really his own. It's his own fault.
In case it needs to be in a fight.
It's his own fault if his wrists were swelling due to his, spiky punk fashions. Oh, here we go. So this is
that's fair.
This is the, sorry, we have an image up of the live blog page. There's just like a wall of stories. There's like 20 stories here, maybe more, from today's event. But David, you never answered my question. What was the one that surprised you the most, or that you were most interested in, or that you didn't see coming?
Well, so my favorite moment was Larry Page telling Robert Scoble that he really didn't like that picture of him wearing glass in the shower, which was just like, he said it like a joke, but it's definitely not a joke, and it was wonderful.
I will say this.
I think the thing
when Larry Page thinks about how he wants glass to be represented in the media, I'm going to go ahead and guess that he doesn't want the enduring image of glass to be a somewhat overweight guy nude in the shower, red-faced and screaming with glass on. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. And by the way,
or maybe it is.
I'm a big Scoble fan. Don't get me wrong, but that picture is, disgusting on every on every level. And I get where Larry Page is coming from.
Yeah. But to actually answer your question, I think the thing that most interested me was all the Google Now stuff. And I was watching you guys talk to Nilay, and it is sort of awkward, these weird ways. You have to she was leaning over her computer and being like, "Okay, Google," which is just sort of weird and awkward to yell at your computer to make it do something. But it's also wildly powerful. And she got up there, and this might have been a line, but she was talking about how she'd never done it in front of a crowd or in a space this big or whatever. And it just worked every time. And she was like, "Show me my flight." It's not, there's no weird syntax. There's no odd way you have to go about it. And it didn't just default to doing Google searches for a buzzword it pulled out of what she said.
Right.
It was actually answering her questions with either information or a super relevant, super specific Google search.
Right.
And if they can actually pull that out and refine it so it's more than just how tall do you have to be to ride on this roller coaster, it could get really cool really fast.
Right.
And I'm excited about that.
So David, I know that you've got to get going. You guys only have a little bit of time there, and I've been told by our producers that we're to move on to a very important topic.
We have more batteries dying.
Yeah, I know. So anyhow, thanks for joining us, and thanks for covering it. And I assume that we'll be seeing more from you guys from I/O at some point today. Maybe not.
Yeah, I'm just going to go keep taking pictures of random people wearing
androids.
glass. That's my task for the rest of the day.
People in fluffy Android costumes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, David, for joining us, and give Nilay a big kiss for us, for both of us, when you see him. So there's actually a news topic that we want to discuss that's just come up while we've been broadcasting, and that is, and I want to get the story right. So let me look at the front page of the site.
The long story short is that Google has demanded that Microsoft pull its new Windows Phone YouTube app.
Yeah.
Which was a pretty hotly anticipated app because Google has never made an official YouTube app for Windows Phone.
That's right.
And the original one was just a wrapper for YouTube's mobile site, and it was frankly terrible. And so what's really amazing about this is that Larry Page literally just minutes ago got done talking about how there's too much negativity in the business, and why don't we all just get along and we can do great things.
And there was a lot. In fact, on stage today, a lot of people were like, I think Vic Gundotra said something about it. I think Sundar said something about it. It was like, forget about platforms. We want to talk about people. We don't care about, where you get the stuff as long as it's all, it's Google and it works and it makes your life easier and blah, blah, blah. So they've demanded that Microsoft remove its YouTube Windows Phone app because it's not displaying ads. And look, I get the argument.
Yeah.
But how is it that this is happening today? Why today?
The timing just isn't great.
The timing it's a little weird. Also, what is this? And by the way, we have this is our story. We have the letter from Google to Microsoft. And you guys should go look at this if you're watching now. It's on the front page of the site. It's in our hero, which is what we call the top part of the site, in case you're wondering. And it's actually really not shocking, but there's been clearly a kind of a Cold War between Google, Apple, and Microsoft.
Particularly Google and Microsoft.
Well, what I've discovered, and I think we talked about this in the Vergecast recently, is that Apple and Microsoft are now sort of like partners in crime when it comes to trying to battle Google. Right. Google is like the shared enemy. It's one of those, the enemy of my enemy is
my friend.
Is that it? Is that what it is?
Yeah, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Right. So in this case, Apple and Microsoft are friends, even though technically they've been enemies.
Right.
Historically.
Right.
And I know they have a lot of partnerships, but it's really interesting. Clearly, Apple doesn't see Microsoft as a threat anymore, in any real way. And obviously, Microsoft sees Google as a big threat on many fronts, right? Whether it's operating systems, mobile, search, which Microsoft has tried to get into, productivity stuff. The productivity stuff probably being the biggest one for them. So, do you think this is this move just a scare tactic? I mean, obviously they want them to pull it, but is this just like, hey, get ads in there? Or do you think there's something? Do you think this is is more meaningful.
You can't help but feel, looking back over the past 6 months to a year, that Google is just kind of like getting a kick out of throwing banana peels in front of Microsoft as they go. And clearly there are very real business reasons for all of these decisions. But I just feel like if Windows Phone really is the non-threat that it seems to be to Android and to iOS, this is a weird... I get that this needed to happen. I just don't know why it needed to happen this second.
Let me read you some of the letter, actually. So this is from Francisco Varela, the Director of Global Platform Partnerships at YouTube. Dear Mr. Bricks, this is to Todd Bricks, General Manager, Windows Phone Apps and Store. We recently became aware of a Microsoft-authored YouTube application for Windows Phone 8 available at, and it has a link. It appears the application, 1, allows users to download videos from YouTube, 2, prevents the display of advertisements in YouTube video playbacks, and 3, plays videos that our partners have restricted from playback on certain platforms, e.g. mobile devices with limited feature sets. This is really interesting, by the way, because YouTube makes a big deal out of if there's copyright violations in a video, they will immediately restrict playback of that video from mobile. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing they do is like, you can't play it on a device, you can't play it on a TV. It's like they restrict it from these like third-party playback places.
Right.
Not third-party, but second screen, I guess.
Yeah. Non-web.
Not web, not native web. These features directly harm our content creators and clearly violate our terms of service. I'm just going to skip ahead. Content creators make money on YouTube by monetizing their content through advertising. Unfortunately, by blocking advertising and allowing downloads of videos, your application cuts off a valuable ongoing revenue source for creators and causes harm to the thriving content ecosystem on YouTube. In addition, your application overrides specific decisions made by some content creators to keep their content from displaying on certain types of devices, which in many cases are due to exclusive distribution arrangements those content creators have with third parties. So I think what's really notable about this is that Google is, there is no interplay here between Google and Microsoft in terms of this app being created. Mm-hmm. And my understanding about this app was that there was some conversation and collaboration. This feels like a weirdly amateur for Microsoft.
I feel like Google has actively gone out of its way to participate as little as possible in Windows Phone.
Right, but I mean, but Microsoft knows they're violating. There's no way their legal department looked at this and didn't say like, well, we're not going to show their ads. We're not going to do X, Y, and Z.
So do you think this is Microsoft poking Google with a stick?
I mean, if it's poking them, I don't see what they have to gain. I mean, they clearly are in violation of their terms of service. Yeah. And the polling this is obviously going to happen. They can't keep it up.
Right.
And if they go to court over it, I don't know where Microsoft can stand.
No. I think my guess is what will end up happening is Microsoft will resubmit this app that's compliant.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, they've gotten a nice bump in visibility because of this little spat.
I mean, here's the question. Did they not make it compliant because they didn't care or were stupid about it? Or is it not compliant because there's some technical reason that ads won't run and that certain settings won't work on a Windows Phone device?
I think it's that in combination with the calculation that if they submit a violating app, they will get this conversation started, and now Google is going to look a little silly if they don't help Microsoft make a compliant app.
Well, I think Google's attitude to Windows Phone, if they had cared at all about Windows Phone, they would have made their own app.
Right.
It's not like they don't want people to view YouTube content.
Right.
I mean, YouTube's job is to make sure the maximum amount of people see their content.
Right.
That's how they make money. But it's clear they didn't make Windows Phone a priority, and there's been a lot of back and forth over YouTube.
Yeah, the whole CalDAV thing, and it's
over YouTube and Google services.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyhow, this is a story that won't stop unfolding. Probably.
And I would like to read you this direct quote from Larry Page that TC just fed me here. This is from his Q&A session, and I think it's very, very appropriate considering these circumstances. Page said, "I think just this week Microsoft took advantage of that by interoperating with us, but not doing the reverse, which is really sad, right? And that's not the way to make progress. You need to actually have interoperation, not just people milking off one company for their own benefit. So I think Google's always stood for that. We certainly struggle with people like Microsoft."
Right.
So that's a very, very telling statement.
There were some subtle comments today. One thing about Google that they don't do, where Apple is sort of notorious for doing it, is like taking straight up shots at people on stage. And Google tends to be a little bit less aggressive. And frankly, I mean, I don't know if they have a position to be more aggressive, you know? Right. In some ways, it's like, look, you guys for a long time were kind of screwing up in a variety of ways. Certainly with mobile, it took them longer to get a foothold.
Yeah.
And to convince people that Android was the platform they wanted to be on. And so I did think today, though, they were lacing these kind of subtle digs at Microsoft and Apple throughout the presentation, which I take, you know, it's fine. It's a little childish. But it's funny to see like what is a subtle dig or an offhand comment get turned into a real situation.
Right.
Which is, this is a real legal situation they now have between Microsoft and Google. Anyhow, so we're getting close to wrapping up. There's two things I want to do. First off, if there's any like questions that you need answered that we didn't cover, I feel like we glossed over a lot of stuff. Because there was just a lot of stuff. We have every major story and even some smaller stories from today's Google keynote on The Verge. We've got a big story stream where we've collected all of the content. We have two big, we didn't really even talk about these, but we have two big features. Well, we did a little bit at the beginning where we got a chance to go to do sort of an inside look at the new Hangouts and the Google Plus revamp with the emphasis on photos and sort of utilizing data to be smarter about content that's displayed. And you should read both of those. They have amazing videos that our video team put together. We sent a crew out of reporters out to Google's campus to sort of like get the story on these products and, you know, figure out if, you know, one of the things we were really interested in is we just covered Facebook's messaging. We did a similar sort of feature story on their new Messenger app and chat heads. And this is sort of like, in a way, Hangouts is very much a response to that. So it's interesting to see the juxtaposition between those two stories. So I highly recommend that you read those.
No chat heads here, though.
No chat heads. I'm actually really disappointed that chat heads is the only app that's using that. I think it's a brilliant interface.
Yeah.
And I really think somebody besides Facebook should pick up on it. Google, maybe. It is your platform. Maybe think about utilizing some of the functionality of it. But so before we go, I'm checking my Twitter to see if, somebody just tweeted at me. By the way, there was an HTC employee that tweeted today about, sort of seemed to be hinting at an unlocked stock HTC One.
Well, in not so many words, it was like, you might just want to wait.
Yeah.
It was something to that effect.
Yeah. I think that somebody just tweeted at me about it, and I don't think that it's certainly not happening today.
No.
I don't think it's happening at I/O. And if it is happening, I'll take one. Please,
we all will.
Please send it to Vox.
We all will.
The Vox offices in Midtown Manhattan. But the things we want to do is, first off, we have footage of earlier when we were speaking to Nilay. There was an Android that walked past him.
Yeah.
And we have footage of it now, and I'd like to know if it's possible for us to get the footage of the Android up on the screen for our viewers, because you pointed it out to me and I was very interested in seeing it. And somebody actually took the time out to cut that together. And Ross, I don't know if you are on top of this in the control room. They're working on it. It's actually quite complicated to get this up on the screen. But so I want to show you guys that. And then we have a supercut of the entire 3.5 hour keynote. That is 3.5 minutes, which is exciting.
That is the correct length of time for an event like this.
Yeah. So we're going to give you, after we get the Android up, which maybe we can't do, maybe we'll have to wait till after the... Ross, do you want us to wait till after we show the supercut? One more second. Well, there's your second. It's come and gone. There we go. Here it is. Here's the Android. And by the way, this Android seems to be in casual conversation with another person. Am I crazy? But they're just like talking. What an odd world we live in.
Also, the Android is clothed.
Yeah, the Android's wearing like a karate outfit or a race,
I think it's a toga.
A jogging. Oh, is that what it is?
Or not? No, it's not a toga.
Not a toga. It looks like a jogging outfit to me.
Yeah,
Anyhow,
it could be.
We may never know. That's the Android that walked past Nilay. It's certainly worth the wait. Actually, this HTC employee just responded on Twitter. She said, we already have a developer edition. It's selling quite well, too. Yeah, but do you have a black developer edition?
touche.
By the way, black HTC One now available at AT&T.
Really?
Yeah.
In stores?
Yes, in store. Well, in online. I was going to mention it to you when we were doing the news. It's probably a little news hit for us.
If you'll excuse me, I need to.
You need to go to an AT&T store right now. Okay. That's pretty much our show, but we want to leave you with this. It's all 3.5 hours of the keynote, of Google's keynote from I/O 2013 in 3.5 minutes, brought to you by the lovely minds at Verge Video. So take a look at this, and we'll be back for some kind of weird sign-off that makes you physically uncomfortable.
Well, good morning and hello. Let's get this keynote started.
I think we are in the middle of one of the most pivotal moments. These are two pictures in the same location, but you look at the one on the right, a sea of phones capturing that moment. 900 million. We couldn't have gotten there without the help of a lot of you in the audience and people around the world, developers around the world. But we have to remember there are over 7 billion people on this planet. So we have a long way to go, and we think the journey is just getting started.
We recently launched a redesigned version of the Google Play Store. You know, in the run-through, we didn't put a picture of a more handsome man behind me up on the screen, but I guess that's fine. We set out to build a music service that didn't just give you access to a world of music, but also helped guide you through it. What if we gave you access to millions of tracks from our store, your personal library blended with ours? That's all access.
We talked about 900 million Androids, 48 billion app installs, a bunch of new tools and developer services that help you build awesome apps. This is a Samsung Galaxy S4 running Android 4.2 Jelly Bean with the same software experience that we ship on our Nexus devices. It's Google's take on Android. This version of the Samsung Galaxy S4 that works on both AT&T and T-Mobile with LTE support. It is bootloader unlocked. Will be on sale starting on June 26 on Google Play for $649.
We're going to give each and every one of you a brand new Pixel. I've been asked to say it's not ready till 2 p.m., so please don't leave in the middle of the keynote.
Today, I'm really excited to announce a new initiative, which will make it easy and affordable for schools to put Android tablets in the hands of all their kids.
We've already been doing this with Chromebooks. Chromebooks are really ideally suited for education because there's literally no setup, no administration. You open the device, you're good to go, and you have the power of web within you. We're going to switch now and talk about what we are doing on Google.
Today, we're introducing 41 new features across 3 major areas of Google+. First, a newly designed stream, a new Hangouts application, and a fundamentally new Photos experience. We have a point of view about software and technology, namely that it should get out of the way and allow people to do what they do best. That's live, learn, and love. Frankly, even Google's own services have been fragmented and confused at times. So we're introducing today a new application, Hangouts. Group video at no charge. Isn't that fantastic?
Now this is really hot. We just took it off the press this morning, and I've actually never tried hot wording in a room with so much ambient noise. Show me things to do in Santa Cruz.
Here are popular attractions in Santa Cruz.
Absolutely amazing. You know, we use tablets, phones, laptops, and you know, even the Google Glass. All those things we're using. I'm tremendously excited about all the innovation that you're bringing to life. Technology should do the hard work so that people can get on with doing the things that make them the happiest in life.
Kind of a somber note there at the end.
A somber end.
Here's the thing, Larry Page can't say anything that doesn't sound very serious and somber.
That's true.
Like, he's so softly spoken, no matter what he says, he could say the most outrageous, nasty thing in the world, but you're going to feel like it's really heartfelt and touching.
But still a little evil.
But also somewhat
Just
evil.
a little bit.
At some point, somebody said did somebody make a joke about him stroking a cat?
Yeah,
Was that
a
you?
naked cat. Yeah.
A nude cat. Anyhow, I think we need to wrap up. We're like pretty much at drink o'clock.
Yes.
We're at beer o'clock here at The Verge. I'd just like to say before we go, I want to thank our team who did an amazing job today for the coverage. I mean, the coverage they did today was crazy. Like the teams on the ground, the video crew on the ground, our reporters and writers that were actually there. Everybody who's here in the office and remote working overseas or in locations around America and around the world. Just they're really incredible to work with, and we we had some issues with the site today. I'm sure some of you guys saw we were getting like these 500 errors and having some comment loading issues, and we were also having issues on our back end and back end issues. Ironic that we have back end issues in the day when my back is hurting. Coincidence? But everybody kind of plowed through it and did an amazing job, and the teams that went and did these long reports, I thought did really cool work. And obviously, a huge thank you to our video team for putting this stuff together, to our product team who's been working very hard to fix those issues. Yep. They're working their asses off to do it and make sure the site stays up. And we had an enormous amount of traffic today, like a crazy, crazy traffic day. Like I don't know all the full numbers yet, but I know that we're still going at quadruple a normal day traffic or
1 billion page views.
1 billion page views being served at the moment. And then I would just like to say thanks to everybody who tuned into this and who tuned into the site today and watched the live blog and read our stories, because without you, we'd be nothing. We would literally be living on the street,
with our
selling,
GS4 Google
with our GS4 developer edition, selling our blood for a meal.
Or drinking our own blood as the meal.
Drinking our own blood in lieu of an actual meal. Anyhow, so thank you guys for reading and watching. And we'll be back, I don't know what...
Xbox is coming up.
Oh,
Xbox
yeah.
event.
Oh, my God. We have another huge live event in just a few days.
Yeah.
May 21st, new Xbox. We will be there covering it live. We will be out in full force with video. We will be doing live analysis. It's going to be sexy. It's going to be exciting.
Larry Page is going to come out at the end
of
it.
Larry Page will come out at the end and softly, quietly talk about why he wants to take his new Xbox to his island.
For 2 hours.
His island experimentation. I don't know what it would be called. It's his lair.
Yes.
His experimentation lair.
So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, stay tuned for that. Anyhow, that's our show. We'll be back soon, and thanks again.